My name is Margaret Ann Windsor, and I was kidnapped in 1941 and brought to Moulton, Alabama, and given the name of a twin. This is where I was brought. This is me in 43. That's Lina Dempsey, mother of the twins. They were illegitimate, um, Carl and Peggy Dempsey, and born out of wedlock, which was back then considered, well, the babies that were birthed this way were taunted and called bastard and illegitimate and all this way back then. That was back in 19. The twins were born, and the best I can find out, about uh, the 1st of 1938 in January. So even the records were different, but they gave me her name when they kidnapped me from Buckingham Palace and put me here with his family. Uh, my father never married Wallace Simpson. She married a double, a look-alike. There were several, and they became the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, and my father was forced to abdicate. My Uncle George is illegal, and thus Elizabeth and that lineage, and they all know they helped in it. The Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, did I say Kennedys? JFK helped in my kidnapping, by the way. This is my dad. When he was forced to abdicate in 36, he was married to my mom, Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, who is sister to artist Georgia O'Keefe, my aunt. Madison, Wisconsin, Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu, New Mexico. This is the double with Wallace, and I'm going to leave it at that. I put all this up before. I ran in many times on YouTube and Facebook. I ran in a campaign, and this is just part of it, to replace Larry McDonald, a congressman doctor I'd written about in 1978, and some other doctors about mind control murders. And during that time, Larry Flint was shot, March the 6th of 78. Had a letter from the FBI. His was a program shooting. Had a letter from the FBI, June the 23rd of 79, ongoing investigation, national security involved. So I'm going to skip to now. Part of it involved mind control, the use of mind control and programming people to you can create an illness or cure it. And last night on one of the night talk show programs, I happened to turn on, they were talking about the Tesla files being stolen. This is what I've been telling for the last, I don't know how many years, but actually putting it up on YouTube and Facebook the last 5 years, 4 years on YouTube. You can cure an illness, create one, or you can kill somebody. Let me back up. You can cure it or create an illness. There's a lot more to the Tesla files, but I was listening to this last night. I actually hadn't heard this discussed, the Tesla files were stolen. That's what I was saying, and I was telling who stole them. So anyway, I wanted to get to this. My father was married to my mom, so he didn't abdicate to marry Wallace Simpson. It was a plot to take him down with character assassination. They did. I know I'm being redundant here, because if I don't give some background, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about if you just brought it up. Now, I'm going to put this one. This is one of the mind control murders, the Sandy Hook, where he was programmed to shoot himself. He's a victim. He killed his mother. Can you imagine? I wanted to remind you of Russell Yates' wife that drowned her three children some years back. That was a mind control. I've forgotten her name. Yates, her name. Can you imagine living with something like that, especially if you didn't know that you were programmed? You'd probably still blame yourself even if you did. Anyway, she was put in a mental hospital, and her husband tried to tell her about it. She was a nice lady. He couldn't understand it. But she was put in a mental hospital, treated for mental illness when it was mind control, just as this one here. He's put in mental hospital, and they're using mental health as a scapegoat for it all. And mind control has nothing to do with mentally ill. Now, I wanted to get this up because Uh, well, I was kidnapped and brought to Moulton, Alabama, and I've am allergic to chemicals. I have an autoimmune disorder. And after I left Mr. Flint's, he furnished me a car for a year, and then I was just on the side of the road, so to speak, before and after that campaign, after so much happened to me down there, and the book was unpublished because all that was happening. My point is, I just want to update it to the last few months. When I came here October the 20th of 68, I know my mom and dad were both still alive and married to each other. They always were. That was a takedown of my father. But anyway, I took to living on the Appalachian Trail, which you could get on by going to Troutville here from Roanoke, and I lived in Troutville part of the time too, but you could go on Mountain Pass Road, and the old trail went up that way, and you could get to Full Heart Knob Shelter, Hiker's Shelter. It's on the Appalachian Trail, so I actually lived and did part of the Appalachian Trail, not that much, but I did part of it over and over, living on it. And the rangers were told to do what they did. And I lived a hideous life. I didn't have food. The locals were told that the law enforcement told them not to help me. And that still stands. Cab drivers here told me that they were told not to help me if I'm bringing stuff in. And I can hardly walk anymore. I'm 78 and I've been beaten in so many ways, and I can hardly walk. Now then, a friend of mine, I hope he's a friend, I don't know, maybe they got him too, but he kind of gave me a timeline, but I didn't really believe it. It was trail moving. So it's come to that. I probably, if he hadn't been here and a few others, I might not have gotten any help at all. I have been kept penniless, and now then I get a little bit of money. And I'm allergic to chemicals. And if I'm around toxic fumes in a close quarter, you have to get away from it. It causes my immune system to attack itself, and it affects me in different ways, just like it does other people. Right now, it's the vertigo that they're really getting me with. And if you think this is made up, I couldn't make it up. So I'm not going to get into anything other than go back. When it got so bad where I'm living, I lived in motels most of the time. I would leave because I'd be so sick and it's killing me over time. I would leave and I'd go to the forest that I've spoken of and put up a tent when I finally got one back in about 94. Up until then, I slept up there with degrees you wouldn't believe and with just a blanket wrapped around me and hardly any food and sometimes no water. And this is in the ice and everything because I was just shut down. I was put on the side of the road literally. So anyway, I took to, when I could get a little money, I'd go out of North Creek Campground at Arcadia, Buchanan. It's about 30 miles from here. And you pay to stay there, and they have water and they have a toilet. You have to pay, but it's not that much. After I reached a certain age, I would get, you don't pay that much. But every time I went out there, and I'm not going to mention his name, and whether he was there or not, he was a host out there. Later, the last few years, I began getting people out there that had really super home on wheel. Well, that's what it was, home on wheel trailers. And they were told what to do. I don't think they worked directly for the forestry, but the last 2 years, the man and woman that come in with this beautiful home on wheels, he drives a forestry truck, and he says he's employed by the agriculture, the forestry. So I'm going to go back. I'm not going to go back other than say that every time I went out there running from here to there, I've tried to leave, and I've been run back with fumes. Chemicals that make me so sick I couldn't stay. So I learned not to pay a month because I could stay a couple of days and be run off with it. And that's happened more than once. And we can stay 2 days. So over the years, I must have compiled, if they were made to ante up, I don't know how many months or years of days that are due me. But I'm even made now to sign where if I pay a week and leave, it doesn't matter about this. This is the reason they do it. I don't get my money back. So I'm subject tomorrow, reason I'm telling this, but I want to go back and tell what recently happened to me and update it. When I would go out to North Creek or just on the trail, some of the volunteers, I'm told, and locals would come up and they would spray the tent. They would burn out at North Creek. They'd burn the wood in the pits, in their fire pits, they campsites. The locals would. They'd burn formaldehyde. It'd be soaked in formaldehyde. Well, that just about killed you. So they did that so much. So that had me running from place to place, walking on the side of the road, in the sun, in the ice and cold, and it's unbelievable just to try to have a place to stay. And real quick, I'm going back to what Larry Flint said to me the last time I saw him when I walked out of his Bel Air home. He says there'll be no room in the inn. And just prior, the first time I was out there, he took me right up to really nice, sweet rooms in his home, and I spent the night, and he was helping me in the campaign to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald. Now then, this time it's election day. It's the 16th of October of '83, and I'm pushing him in a wheelchair, and we're going room to room in his home, and it's occupied. So it's cryptic. You can decode a lot of this stuff, and it's done in patterns, and that's how it's done. That's how the Vegas thing was done, shooting. Anyway, that's what's happened to me over the years. I've been blocked. This is since '83, and I came here in '86, and I've either lived in motels, and most of them were seedy, and you can imagine what happens to you. So I'm going to skip back to North Creek. They put the formaldehyde over the years. Every time I go, it's like you leave and you go and it happens to you again and you run again. And the last, let me put this back, 2-3 months, I had to go out to the campground again. The same people were there that worked for the forestry, agriculture, drive a truck, got 2 cars, or 1 car, a new car, and a great big, I think it's a red Ram truck, and they drive the forestry truck vehicle. So they work for the forestry. And what they have done is they have put something, I don't know if it's pre-done wood or they've sprayed in part. Same as been done all before. And now that's gotten me where I have vertigo and I've fallen a few times. This really hurt me. But to make a long story short, this time I went up there about a month ago now, because I didn't have the rent to here. I've been run so much and kept penniless. I went up there to stay for 2 weeks and till I could get some money together again. And they actually had big trucks that were going somewhere up in the forestry, and they had the chemicals in that you could see. It was chemicals trucks, about 3, 4, 5 of them. And they would come back, and they had no right to, this is a forestry, to park where they did at the campground, right where I was. And they would, in the middle of the night, they'd start it up and turn on the light and go back and forth and wake me up. And it got so bad that I couldn't even get up with vertigo. I was turning over and I was having diarrhea and everything. Nobody would help me. I have had, at this time, I'm not going to go back in the past. At this time, I just bought a brand new tent. supposed to be. And when I got out there, it was soaked with chemicals on the inside of it. And I have never been like that before. I went into, I don't know, just screaming. It was so horrible. And I won't, it lasted for about 10 minutes. Had to throw the tin away, every bit of it. And then I'm going to fast forward here. This happened, and I remember there was a lady, they had the bear dogs up there. And she stood right there where the chemical trucks had been, and she said to someone, so I could hear her, she said, "How would you like to be up here begging for somebody to help you?" And they wouldn't. So now then, I came back down here, and I have to pay a cab to come and get me, and that's money, and then get my money, and then come. So it involves cab and money just to get into a place for a week or two. Now then, I had to leave and go back up for the same reason, but I went up on the Parkway, Blue Ridge Parkway. There's a Cornelius shelter up there for hikers, has toilet, and you can get to water. It's a little iffy to get to the water, but it's there. But you can put a tent up right there, and it's just off the Parkway. And there's also a horse trail road, a forestry road, that leads, of all places, from there back down to North Creek. Really, it's about 5 miles, I guess, but locals can walk it or have a way to get in and out. So that's what happened here. I got there and paid a cab to get up there and got my stuff down and my tent put up, and there's just a few hikers. They're mostly all gone, that they're either section or, but they were, the few that came by the few days I was up there were okay. So the second night I was there, I heard they're not even supposed to camp there. This is the forestry and agriculture who has participated in all this too. I heard them and I smelled it, and I started getting vertigo, and they were laughing. They must have had a fire going or something. But anyway, they had come to find out they had come in from that fire road, not from the Appalachian Trail. So they ended up, the second night I was there, they soaked, when I went to get water, went to the little hikers to talk with a hiker or two, because I was getting vertigo then. I was just soaked, my tent and everything. I couldn't even get in it. So the third and fourth night, a few hikers went by, and I was so sick. And on the 28th, which was a few days ago of September, I was really getting bad. The tent was gone. They'd soaked it. And they also had some fire starter, which they're not supposed to have. And one of the hikers said, well, none of the hikers would bring that in. That come off the road, which is the Blue Ridge. And by the way, I want to say this. I couldn't believe it when I got up there. They had paved the Blue Ridge Parkway where I was in a long section. I don't know how much of it, but long. So I was getting some of that, the fumes, which are horrible to me. Now, it was, I would have been okay if I'd been left alone and they had not used chemicals on me. It's chemical warfare any way you cut it. So now then, a woman come up, and you couldn't get, I couldn't power my phone, and she said she couldn't get a signal. I know now she just pretend that she cared. She was told to come in there from the Parkway, and she went up there without me knowing it, and she called the park rangers. Well, this is the forest. The section I'm in is off the highway, which is the park rangers. But anyway, she called them, and the Troutville rescue unit, and suddenly everybody's there, and